We'll call the Finance Subcommittee meeting to order at 8:05. Let's see what we got. So maybe we'll wait to do the subcommittee reorganization until later. See if Mark arrives. Next item of business is the assistant superintendent update. Specifically, I'm happy to hear anything you all want to talk about, but specifically wanted to chat about the transition plan, hiring status of the new director.
So, Katie, can you just describe the work that you're doing?
Of course.
And then I'll go to the hiring piece, and then we'll go into the overlap piece. Okay.
So a lot of the work that I've been focusing on kind of recently is just making sure that we're in a really good place to close the books and then be able to open the books for fiscal year 27. So the pieces that are from the accounts payable, more of like the vendor warrants and some of the payments that we're making to the outside service providers. We have put a purchasing freeze on. We communicated that to the leadership team and to some other individuals that are responsible for purchasing, I think over a month ago. And that purchase order freeze is currently in place now. And that really is just in an effort to help make the end of year closeout go smoothly. We gave plenty of notice. I think it was prior to April school vacation to say, like, if you need something, make sure that you're getting those purchase orders or requests for purchases in prior to the cutoff, which was at the beginning of May. So that's for this fiscal year, and that just allows us to look at all of the purchase orders that are currently open, go through them, reconcile them, process those payments, just because we want to have a really clean closeout. We want to have a really good idea of where we are at the end of the fiscal year. For next year, we have asked all of the department heads, principals, and again, the people that are responsible for purchasing, if they could try to get as many of their purchase order requests in sooner rather than later. And that's really just in an effort to be able to like organize the information, assign account codes, just verify what is being requested, just to help, because there's so much work that happens over the summer, but the summer is also a difficult time to do the work because we are still trying to close out the prior fiscal year. And that really is just in an effort. I just was hoping to be able to have the requests organized in kind of an easy to understand way, so that the next person that's coming into the role isn't just, when they walk in on day one, faced with a stack of papers. And I just don't want there to be any delay in receiving goods or services for the opening of the school year in late August, early September. So that's currently in process. For payroll, which is 81% of our budget is our salaries. The lump sum payment is going to happen during the first payroll in June. And what that is we're essentially paying the staff for the payments that they will receive over the summer. That payment happens in June. So that's the majority of our teaching staff. Some of our Unit B, which is curriculum supervisors, assistant principals. So where Maureen, who is our payroll processor, is currently in the process of making sure that she has everything accurate. There's some adjustments that have to happen in the lump sum payment. Just if someone potentially doesn't have enough sick time, that's where the adjustment happens. So when you have 600 employees that you're processing that for, and then a lot of moving pieces, it's a lot of work. And so we're trying to give enough time and attention to that to make sure that we're accurate, and that everything is lining up with the budget. So that's another piece. Stipend payments happen along the same time period. So the majority of the stipend payments have already been processed, but we're still processing those. And again, all of this work is just happening because I just want to make sure that things are kind of neat and straightforward for the end of the year. And that if you don't do that preparation work, things can kind of linger into the next fiscal year, which can make things a little bit more complicated. So we're just trying to stay on top of it as much as we can and make sure that everything is accurate when we press those payments and everything goes smoothly. Certainly we're in a much better spot, more straightforward spot than we were last year, which I'm extremely grateful for. It's for processing a lot easier. So, and not easier, but just more straightforward.
Can you, just a clarifying question? So it sounds like a whole bunch of staff who don't work over the summer, receive a lump sum payment, the contract in July 1.
It's actually early, the first pay period in June. That's when they receive that
And
payment.
that carries them all the way through the summer, basically.
Correct. Yeah,
And that is accrued to the FY27 budget.
that's FY26. Yeah.
Okay, so
Mhm.
the summer months. So the summer months are accrued to the prior year
Correct.
fiscal year. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So because the fiscal year ends June 30, but the contract ends August 31st.
Okay, so
So we process the payment in the correct fiscal year, but it's actually earnings, kind of like because they're deferred compensation over the summer for that period of time they're not working. And the teachers, I believe the options are in the contract, in the Unit A contract. They have options to either receive their pay in that manner of the 26 pay periods, which carry them over the summer, or they can split their pay into 21 pay periods, which is essentially the pay periods during the school year. And then they don't receive that, what we call a lump sum payment in June.
Got it. Maybe this gets into the transition part a little bit, but so you won't be here, like when the FY26 books are closed.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the risks for that?
So
I
that's
know, I get it.
Yeah.
You're lining everything up.
Totally. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So one of the last pieces in order for us to close the books for the fiscal year really is, so we have our operating budget funds, and then we also have the funds in our revolving accounts. We talked a lot about the utilization of the revolving accounts. We utilized them pretty heavily in fiscal year 24 because we didn't have enough funds in the operating budget, and that was some of that work that happened in July. We have until, I believe it's July 14th to close the books for the previous year. So for the first 2 weeks in July, it allows us time to process journal entries, which is essentially just moving expenses from one place to another, whether it be from one account in the operating budget to another account, or it could be moving expenses from the operating budget to revolving accounts. And so really the last step in the process is if we have to move any expenses that we currently have assigned to the operating budget over to the revolving accounts, and that would be the circuit breaker account or some the grants that we receive. And so that typically is the last thing that we would do in July. And we're drawing from those revolving accounts depending on what the balance looks like in the operating budget. And so I really truly think with all of the work that we've done over the course of the year, not even just the past couple of months, it may just be a matter of, okay, now we need to just do one transfer in July from the operating budget to circuit breaker, and then the books are closed and done.
Right.
So pretty straightforward, and that's just a matter of running reports and impressing that that's something I can very easily walk somebody through, you know, over that. So I'm not worried.
All right. Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
For all the diligent
That was
planning
a-
in advance.
Detail, so I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
I want to thank Katie because the ability to clean this up at such an early date is really important for the transition. But even in a regular year, if Katie was going to stay for the next 100 years or no one was coming in. That's how traditionally you would close the books. I always close them in May because it gives you a runway to see every PO that's out there that you don't forget about, or when you have so many folks that have the ability to write a PO and expend dollars, you just need to tighten it up so you can see everything. So because you only have 2 weeks in July, but the last week of June, no one's here. So then the business person's by themselves trying to figure out somebody else's PO and where that is. So we saw that a little bit last year, which was not a good healthy practice. So that will be the annual practice. And to Katie's point, I really appreciate her work supporting the revolving accounts as a priority to try to right size the budget, because that will be part of our right sizing of the FY27 budget. So our FY27 allocation combined with how we leave some healthy revolving accounts will really put us in a good position for next year.
Great.
And there's a pretty clear roadmap of where all the budget itself that Katie's developing for the new person coming for 27. We said that they can just plug it to, which is great and helpful. And thank you. For the transition, we had a team interview 5 or 6 candidates. It was a paper screening of about 11. The results of those interviews and paper screening came down to 3 finalists. The interview team that was led by Carla and a group of it, Carla, Maureen from payroll, Bill Fish, Martha Sandoval from community schools. They were the initial screening team. They produced 3 finalist candidates. Danielle Wetmore and I met with each finalist last year to make sure that the special education view of this was present in the conversation of finalist interviews. We actually had 3 competent finalists, and I would hire any one of the 3. So there's a preference thing.
It's a nice luxury.
It was a very nice luxury. And just from a hiring standpoint, 2 of the 3 people were people of color, which was another interesting dynamic that we were very thankful for, the pool being diverse and deep, which was great. I have offered an interview for 1 of those 3 to come in tomorrow. And then the other 2 are waiting that discussion. And hopefully at the end of the day tomorrow, we'll have finals game. The other 2 candidates will put on hold until that answers. That discussion is finalized, either to the good or to the bad in terms of contract offer.
Yeah.
The person, all 3 people have municipal experience, years of municipal experience, whether it be in CFO of a town, municipality, or a accountant in a town. I'm trying not to identify them.
Yeah.
So we have people from Boston Public Schools, people from that are in large organizations that have a financial role within the larger system, and we have folks who come from smaller towns that have the CFO role at the municipality level. So, which means that they've all interacted with the schools because they were that partner of the schools.
Yeah.
So that's all the good news. The nuances of what makes the school budget different are the questions that we ultimately started to really focus in, because we knew they knew how to do the work there. All 3 were at least 20-year veterans of municipal work. So they know the work, but now it's the selling season, the school budget, which does carry, areas that you have to really pick up on, i.e. the federal grants, the circuit breaker, the big ones, making sure that you're diligent with federal grants and circuit breaker and the understanding of that. Everybody had a grasp on that. The larger district had an interesting grasp on it because it was just not that much money to them. Right. Whereas the 2 towns that were people from towns was like, yeah, that's a big deal because that's a sizable portion of our overall budget and how important it is. So it was interesting to learn about the dynamics of how city budgets work versus town budgets. But yeah, so we feel very confident in tomorrow we'll have that meeting and hopefully we'll to terms with that individual and announce him and move forward.
Great.
And then Katie and I, as she ends the year with the work she's doing and also has time that she's taking, we've identified 2 days where there'll be overlap. So whoever the candidate is at the end will have to commit to 2 days in June.
Okay.
That Katie has already identified in her calendar that will two overlap days. And so that will be part of that transition as well. And Katie has offered to be available during July. I'm trying to convince her that once you leave, it's hard to look back. But I do appreciate that offer, and we will call if needed. And I thank Katie for being available, but we're trying to organize it so that doesn't have to happen. I'm sure Katie will have her plate full where she goes, but we appreciate the connectivity that we can have with Katie if we need to.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate her offer to do that as well.
Great. Congrats on a successful hiring process.
Yeah, it was, I want to thank Carla for running it, Martha Sandoval, Bill Fish, and Maureen for being part of it. There was one other person, I can't remember who it was. And just from transitions, we have the HR finals coming in next week.
Yeah.
And we have a finals interview for the technology director position today. So we could have all three of those, significant positions by the end of next week. Yeah.
HR person report to you?
Yes.
Also, just in terms of org technology
Yes.
person reports to Carla.
Org chart, the technology person is a unit B position, not a contract.
Got it.
So they would report to Carla.
Lizzie, any questions or thoughts?
Sounds good.
And I know that I don't want to continue to yell thank you to Katie as she drives away on June 30th, but this has been a very effective year for the Finance Committee. And it started by Katie finishing 25 well, and being here in May, watching the diligence in which she was able to pull so many different things together that were unknown by the minute. Purchase orders, stipends, things that were not codified anywhere, and then actually discover them. We were sending emails to principals and everybody, you need to do this, and they had never really actually had done that before. So closing 26 was a significant accomplishment. Not only having it come to meet the number and asking for the billing from the warrant committee, but just identifying the expenses in a way that we could actually pay for them for. I mean, it was a lot. And so this year is night and day in terms of every expense is in front of us. It's all been encumbered. There's no confusion. This is how it should be. Then also under the school committee's leadership, along with Mark and Katie, the 2 policies that we created this year were significant in terms of safeguards for the community around how the budget will be accessed. And if it does get access for more money coming out of a revolving account like circuit breaker, it has to be done at a table with people in voting, as opposed to dealt with in other ways. So those structures have been really helpful. And behind the scenes, Katie has set up internal systems for how we encumber when someone's out, and we have people stepping in for folks that are not a traditional sub that we might have to pay a teacher. Everything now is done by memo. It's all been encumbered. So we know our every expenses. And when things pop, because every year things do pop, or every week something pops, it goes into a memo. It goes to Katie, it goes to the other people. So there's no confusion about what's being spent and why. So,
and there's an institutional record, like a memory of how decisions were made, which is
so we have
especially for the next person.
someone going on an FMLA, and it's a significant position. We need to hire someone to replace that person in just 6 weeks. But you codify it, you write it down, and it's an expense, and you put it out in front of everybody. So, and the principals, I thank them for slowly getting on board. Right?
Yes.
What do you mean I have to stop and write this? I just told you. No, you have to stop it and write it down. I have to approve it, and when I approve it, I send it to Katie, and then Katie approves it. So
Yes.
there is a system, and I think remembering to where you all were, we started last year, those things were not in place. And those, I think, are the systems that people expected the schools to put in place. So it's good to codify this in this meeting that all those things are in place now, which is really good news.
I think for me, thinking about how the level of knowledge from the directors and the principals and people that are like responsible for actually spending the money. The engagement and level of understanding when I first started to know it's like significantly different. And I think that's really important because everyone really feels like invested in a part of the process. In which they should, right? It's not just one person's responsibility.
And they have budgets that Katie goes
They
through with
do.
them, so now it's like, if you want to buy that, you can buy that. But just remember, this is what you have, when you buy that, this is what you have. And when you buy that, this is how much you, so be thoughtful about what you have. You know what I mean? And that has produced thoughtful, strategic thinking around what they said budget for. In all the unit B people who spend money for principals because they don't have their own budgets. Principals house all the money in Katie's budget. And then when we buy workbooks for math for elementary schools, now Brian Selling has to write a memo to the principal saying, I bought an X amount of workbooks for your school. Your school has 380 students, so there's 380 for you, there's 600 for you. Here's the amount of money that your school is going to be charged out of your account. There's no confusion about it. If the principal saying, where's that money? How come I thought I started the year with $50,000 and I only have 40? Because everybody is writing memos to you saying that how to spend that money. And so it's all been very much a part of our continued leadership meetings throughout the year.
That's great. That level of transparency is so important. I hope you feel really proud of all the work you've done.
Yeah.
And we're so grateful for
Of course.
your service.
Yeah.
I think one thing, just this is anecdotal, but like, everyone in town is connected to the schools. Like they know their teachers' names, obviously, they know their principals, they might know other people. I would say it's rare for random town residents to know who the assistant superintendent of finance is. And a lot of people know who you are and are grateful for all of the work that you've done. I mean, just when I was running for school committee, be knocking on random doors and people would know who you are. So I think it's a testament to the trust that you built with the town, both of you, and the transparency that you do your work with. A lot more people understand how this happens and are bought into it and feel ownership over it. So really important. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right. Anything else on transition? Where will the shrine be? Will it be in your office? Just a big photograph, flowers underneath, something.
What would Katie do?
Well,
You know, always.
all right. Should we talk about the budget development schedule that the budget coordinating committee has been working on? I sent this around to all of you. And this is like, well, 3 of us plus Mark are on this committee, so we've been working on this for quite some time. Lizzie, I'm not sure if this is the first time you're seeing this or if you saw early drafts. I think I just wanted to invite a conversation between all of us. I had a couple of things that I wanted to check, just sanity check with both of you around timing, in particular in December and January, where, a lot of stuff has to get done under a compressed timeline. But before I raise those, I think happy to hear any. I'm not gonna like walk through this document, but happy to hear any like questions or comments on any parts of it.
I have one question about this plan for the after action review, which seems like a good practice. Is something like that taking place? Has it taken place, or is it planned to take place this year? I see it in here for the winter as part of next year's process.
So the committee and the vice chair, Leroy, is leading a survey collection process. So all the members of the committee are weighing in via an anonymous survey on how the process unfolded. And then I don't know the exact plan, but I assume we will be debriefing the results of that input and talking about it as a committee.
like sometime
Yes.
before August.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
Like in our next one or two committee meetings, I assume. Yeah, okay. And yeah, I think it's a great, I think it's, I'm really grateful it's in here. I think it's an important practice. I wanted to ask, so if we just look at December and January, where we are.
Could you share that on the screen? Because I don't have the copy.
Yeah.
Okay, we have them.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Laura. So, through the summer and the fall, we're sort of conceptually designing budgets, the kind of contingent and non-contingent budget, collaborating with other boards and town staff to understand what revenue and expense expectations should look like, having joint planning sessions. And then by the time we get to December, we're hoping to have drafted contingent and non-contingent budgets. Same with the select board on the town side. And then we are submitting that to those drafts to the town administrator and then subsequently down the chain to the warrant committee, so that those two bodies can begin sort of processing all of the information and providing feedback to the committees. One, and this is, I'm raising something I think has come up in the budget coordinating committee. I just want to get a sense of this. So we have by the second Friday in December, the town administrator is turning over our contingent and non-contingent budgets to the warrant committee, meaning that prior to that, some point in the first 2 weeks of December, we need to have complete a contingent and non-contingent budget. And then some point in the second half of December, the warrant committee is hosting the school committee and superintendent to provide feedback on our budget. And then when we get to January, I'll just fast forward to January. We're holding PTO budget briefings. We are holding our budget hearing, the sort of legally required budget hearing. We're voting on a final budget. So there's a lot that's happening there in that month, really. And it should, in my mind, it should all be doable if we've done all of this work in advance. But I just wanted to hear from the two people who sort of fully owned this work last year, how that sits with you. We're not, I think we're trying to, as I understand it, we're trying to agree to a schedule as a town. We're not chiseling this into granite. So things will come up. Maybe if we have to flex, we can do that. But I wanted to sort of hear from both of you whether this felt reasonable.
So I'm just going to start. It all sounds very reasonable, with the understanding that it is pressurized to get a lot of work done before the holiday break.
Yeah.
And the goal is, if you can get that done, then you're actually moving the work much easier for January, February, March, in preparation for the March, for warrant committee to actually have something. The question becomes the detail of that, what the schools can provide. What's the level? Is it a 30,000 foot level? Is it a 1,000 foot level? Is it the full detail is really where the hardest work comes in. And I think when we talk about contingent and non-contingent budgets, it will be very helpful for probably the schools in the town, but I would just say the school, to know what the gap is that we're talking about. So it really will become important to understand what the revenue forecast is at a very significant, at a very not detailed level, but really this is what we're zeroing in on, even though we don't know what the House budget looks like or the governor's budget looks like and Chapter 7 looks like. Because as we learned this year, first of all, knowing it earlier helps because we can construct those budgets with more detail. Knowing that there might be more money rolling in later on and just assuming that. it's a tension, it's a political tension between getting people riled up and not riled up at whatever point of the year. But if that gap is $500,000, then this is that big of a deal. We know that we might we'll get more chapter 70, that gap will go from 500 to 200, we'll figure it out, it'll work. If the gap is 3 million, then that's a different conversation. That might spill into January. That might be something where there's going to be more dialogue, and that has to be fine soon. So I like the structure. I like the aggressive structure, but it needs to be seen through the lens of, it really depends on what we're seeing in terms of a revenue expense consistency, where they're the same mark, or if there's a big gap. That's where the non-contingent contingent budget will go, because the detail of that we'll need to provide on our side needs to be substantial. Because we'll end up taking the broader reduction, and it will mean that we would want our community to weigh in on what that might impact, what that impact might be.
Yeah.
I don't think it affects the town as much, because I don't think that they'll end up having to make that many changes. And then the other part of that discussion will be, what is the expectation for the split between town and schools? And what is the anticipated growth percentage that the schools are going to be able to utilize to make FY 2020 work? That's going to be the discussion that will be helpful. That's just my opinion. Katie, what do you think?
No, I totally agree. I think I just had, and we're talking like focusing on December and January, but I think to those points, I had just gone back to look at August and September, because I think August and September is really the appropriate timing to be looking at overall revenue, because that is essentially going to drive the budget that we're creating from an expense side. And that is going to give us the information that we need to say, okay, if level service is X percent, and we know that the revenue is only this percent, what is the gap and what are the changes that need to happen?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the sooner that we can get that information, which I know that there's some language around having some of those conversations in August and September, the sooner the better, knowing that there, of course, are going to be changes up until we finalize the budget in January, February.
I actually see that discussion happen in October.
Okay, great.
So, and I don't know what led to that. That may be the soonest that we can actually reasonably talk about it. Does that feel reasonable to you?
Yes.
You have free cash being certified by the
Mhm.
town right around then, so then
Yeah.
that solidifies the next year's budget.
Yeah.
But from the town side, then free cash looks like it's certified. That's a building block of the next year's budget, so.
Lizzie, anything? I know you're kind of absorbing this for the first time.
No, I mean, I agree that this makes good sense. I think it could go without saying, but just what I've learned, it's good to be agreeing to all of this now, because our ability to, like we saw this year, our ability to follow through on our time frame hinges on the warrant committees doing their time frame, select board doing their time frame. So I think it's good that everybody can just agree to something, because you have proposed a timeline that looked similar to this.
Correct.
But it was not followed. And that meant we couldn't follow it either. So, I think I see this as a, continuation of the model that you attempted to implement. So it's, hopefully we'll have more success coming through the budget coordination committee, since that's like everybody at the table together.
The discussion that I didn't go to the last Milton, the budget meeting. I had a previous commitment, but we were talking about it being part of that. The definitions or how we want to talk about rollover budget versus level service budget versus level funded budget, all of which are very different things that have a lot of different nuances to them. And then trying to figure out how we can educate the community around what each one of those mean. So when we use them, we can all speak the same language. So I think it will be important for us when we do the debrief and we get ready in August for this conversation, that when we start that the non-contingent budget, which means it's not contingent on or extra money. Non-contingent means what? It means that we don't need any other resources in order to make this budget work. If that's going to be consistently across the town departments and school, rolling everybody over with certain assumptions, I think that's something that we want to come to agreement pretty early, so we can all describe it the same way. And it has similar, as best we can, apples to apples conditions for everybody. Like if it's for the schools, and I think Katie did that last year in October, which was we're rolling every person over. We're making certain reasonable assumptions, like utilities will go up by X%. We're looking back at our actuals and making some reasonable assumptions about some of the non-salary expenses. By in next year's budget, we'll have a contract with everybody. So we'll know exactly what the personnel line will be in terms of dollars, compensation, et cetera. So that's what that means. We just want to make sure that, Amy and, Nick and I and Katie or Katie's replacement, and we're all understanding that that's the same thing going forward. Whatever that, doesn't matter which one of those things it is, just has to be the same thing for everybody. So we can all say that's what non-contingent means.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I had mentioned this during budget coordination, but I'll say it again here. I think it's really important to, as a part of the process, to be able to create that level service budget. And for me, a level service budget is just projecting what the cost is going to be next year for the same level of service that we have this year. Because you just want to, that creates the baseline to say, we took everybody, projected them out 1 year forward. This is how much it's going to cost us. And if the revenue is not matching whatever that percentage increase is, then there are certain changes or reductions that we'll have to make to be able to meet that, so we can have a balanced budget. It's just, and then we, during the course of the conversation, kind of went over like level service. I think sometimes level service and level funded are used interchangeably. I've heard that a lot. Level funded would be the same amount of money, which always results in cuts year over year.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to be careful when we always want to say that we're providing level service, the same level of services to our students and to our staff. So that's just such an important part in the process, to be able to communicate, like, if you want the same number of teachers, number of buses, the same instructional materials, this is
The lights on.
The lights.
The bus is rolling, the heat on, all the
non-salary stuff.
that comes with an increase.
It
of
comes.
funding, but not an increase of you're getting.
And it doesn't mean you just blindly do the same thing next year that you did this year.
In all of this,
I think it's having that financial baseline is right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So similar to what we did this year, we will do again next year. We will realign positions into our resources, which means we might have 2 less of these type of staff members. So we can add 2 more of these types of staff members in order to directly impact the classroom.
Yeah.
In a more effective way for students.
Yeah.
And that realignment that we did this year, despite reducing staff, was important. And I think that's what I think we're gonna be in realignment mode for a couple of years before we ever think about adding mode.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be in adding mode for a little while until we can kind of right size the budget and what we offer. So that is going to be a part of the conversation for sure.
So just keeping an eye on the clock. I know half of us have to go somewhere else in 10 minutes. Are we good on I have a few notes here, but it seems like the committee is generally comfortable with this timeline. I thought we could spend a few minutes talking about the goals for our committee next year, like just things we want to accomplish in addition to building and improving the budget. For example, this year, John, as you mentioned, we wrote and approved sped stabilization policy, circuit breaker policy. What is the work product, if any, that we hope to produce as next year beyond the budget? And like one thing on my mind is just other revolving fund policies that may be important to govern those. Yeah.
So I'm thinking that if and related to revolving accounts, we may need to review in a more comprehensive way fees.
Mhm.
Because if we're, I think we increased some fees this year to make things work. And remember, we screenshot some fee shifts. I think we shifted the bus fee. We might want to look at our rental fee schedule a little bit differently. We are a very good partner to the town, and we give everything. The council on aging issues in the auditorium, we're going to give it to them free. We'll just charge the custodian. I think we do a good job of charging people who rent that are not part of the town, and maybe reviewing what those fees could be in order to be more revenue seeking, even though we're not a revenue generating organization, but we do have space to rent that we might want to increase that. That might be just one thought. And when I think about fees, if we have a budget that's stable, I actually am very open to reducing fees for some things that our students and families use. Yes, because I don't believe in high bus fees or high athletic fees. So maybe if we get some stability in our budgets over the next couple of years, then we can actually be thoughtful about it. We can hold and/or reduce some student incentive fees. Yeah, as part of that. It'd be nice that, and if that's a conversation we just want to have out loud.
Yeah,
maybe we have to wait to see how 27 goes. This is one data point where Katie has provided us one solid fiscal year data point. And then we have to carry that over to make that one solid year. Next data points are connected, and then 28 will be the third, and that's the trend, right? So now we're in good shape. We know where we are. We know where the revenue is going to be. We know where whether we're going to be reducing each year by a couple, or we're going to be. Next year will be a hard year. We're not going to wake up next year being even. We're going to wake up next year and need to do exactly what we did this year. But hopefully we just do it in October, November.
Yeah.
Which is kind of not have as much revenue as we hoped, realign things where we think it works for kids, and maybe have to be thoughtful about whether we can reduce a couple positions.
Yeah. And not have it be a crisis moment.
Right?
In January,
Correct.
Right.
Right.
And just
Suddenly,
that's
plate. That's
Yeah.
exactly. It's a
this year could
it's
have
a
been not
planning discussion over the course of 6
This would have
months.
been a more uneventful year. We just went through, had that discussion back in October.
On fees, I completely agree with you, and I think any way we can find to control fee increases. I think fees will go up because costs go up, but it pains me to try to close budget gaps with using fees, just given how regressive they are. So I'm with you on that, John. On other revolving fund policies, I don't know, this is a knowledge gap for me. Like, I just don't know what we would typically have. It gives me a great deal of comfort to know that we have a circuit breaker policy. And I think it seems like that logic should extend to other revolving fund policies. I could imagine, I don't know that we need a policy for every single line, every single revolving fund, but there may be specific revolving funds we want to have policies for, or maybe we want to have a policy governing the entire body of revolving funds that aren't circuit breaker. But what is best practice there when you see it there?
So I want to give Katie the floor because I think you have some really good thinking around that, and you can say whatever you like because you're leaving. So I want you to feel comfortable saying, like, these ones, you don't really need much there, but there might be a couple that you want to pay attention to. I think that's been the gist of it.
So typically it is 3 months of expenses. That's the balance that you would want to retain in a revolving fund. That is kind of the federal guidelines that we use for the school lunch program. is that we're supposed to have the 3 months worth of operating expenses as a balance in the accounts. So that's what we typically use for some of the other accounts, I think. And then I believe it's DLS also gives us guidelines for the revolving accounts of specific to the schools, and then they have guidelines that are specific to municipalities around just somewhat governing the usage of the revolving accounts and saying that yes, you can roll over the funds year over year, but you're only supposed to use them for like these specific purposes. So I think it's always important to kind of like keep that as our framework of any of the conversations, because it's not like we can just take money into the revolving account and then spend it whatever we want. There really is supposed to be a specific purpose for the collection of those fees. So I think that's just a really important thing to keep in mind. That I think a piece of the work that we started this year was really looking at building rentals and what is an appropriate balance, knowing that we want to be able to utilize some of the revenue that we receive to maintain and upkeep the facilities that are being used on pretty much a daily basis throughout the year. Transportation is another piece too. We had increased the fee this year, but just looking at how much of the revolving account should offset the overall cost. Right now, it's only a fraction. I think it pays for maybe 1 or 2 months. That's how much of the revenue we're bringing in. So looking at transportation. And then also the athletics. So I think athletics is a pretty significant expense. So kind of looking at how much revenue we're bringing in for athletics. Is that appropriate? Are we carrying 3 months worth of expenses in that account? And is that an area where we would need to change the fee to kind of reflect what we think is an appropriate balance in the account? Those were the 3 kind of, that was the next iteration of looking at, is there a policy that could be somewhat similar in high level and that would encompass those 3 important accounts. And
What about community schools?
community schools, because I think because community schools, the intent is for that to be a self-sustaining program. I think of it as a little as different than the other ones. The other ones are just, it's the revenue that we receive is not intended to pay for the entire program, where community schools is self-sustaining, self-operating.
Would you say, Katie, that community schools and school lunch are kind of here for the reasons that you just said,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything else is kind of over here, like
Yes.
buses, buses, transportation is only a fraction,
Mm-hmm.
athletics is only a fraction.
Mhm.
Facilities, I would like to develop that to be a more substantial
Yes.
revolving account that actually we could give to Bob Mayhew, the facilities department, to do more of the unexpected costs. We have to stop that from scratch. But yeah, I agree. School lunch and community schools are just different. They're self-sustaining.
Yeah.
You kind of leave them over there. They're the real 3 months of expense
Mhm.
kind of folks.
Mhm.
Because there's no general fund money going to those.
Yeah.
Policy idea, that makes sense to me to model it on what we did this year, because it's also about setting our like intentions as a committee. Even if we can't commit future committees, to the fees, but to the increases. I feel like that would be helpful for the community to take a step back and have some conversation about what might be necessary, like looking forward, because it's obviously better for people if they can have a way of anticipating like what increases they might need to expect to kind of help phase the
Mhm.
fees of transportation or athletics towards like a better level,
Mhm.
rather than having some surprising feeling fee, like increase at the end of the year for next year. Do you know what I mean? Like, when we talked about, we want a 4-year plan,
Yeah,
we want a 3-year plan towards. I just wonder if there's a way to talk about that where we're now intending to raise the fees like all at once in 1 year.
yeah,
But we are making a 3-year
Yeah.
plan to get us to a place.
and they do it incrementally, step by
Correct.
step, yeah. When we were doing community schools, that conversation came up, should we?
It did, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
these expenses go up each year and the fee stays dormant. And then we knock people
We have to
over
catch
with
up.
$100 increase and it doesn't feel okay.
Yeah.
And there should
Yeah.
be
Yep.
potentially a policy that just says these fees go up every year by X%.
Yes.
And that we just have, now then we're trying to work within that increase.
That
and-
makes,
and not
that's
going
a good
beyond
way to.
that.
Yeah,
And-
that's really.
And that really is not just for community schools, which seems to be, that was the one this year, but we already had like 2 or 3 folks email about that, Martha and Katie and I talked to different parents throughout the year from that, but that would be helpful for all, because then,
It's just more predictable.
yeah, it is more predictable, and that, but despite the fact that it's not as much of the athletic budget as it would be, every dollar helps. Yeah, that's $1 million enterprise that when their fees are X% of that, if it's $30,000 off, that's $30,000 out of the revolving account. That's a paraprofessional to kind of,
Yeah.
generally like that's, there's not that much room for error on some stuff. So I think that would be a great idea to talk about annual increases at a certain percentage to provide clarity for future planning. Great.
Great. So we can take, oh, I should have said at the beginning, I wanted to just start this conversation so that we could take it into our governance retreat in a
Yeah.
couple of weeks and just have all these ideas on the table to share with the rest of the broader school committee. Finally, just before we close out, is there a need for us to meet again before the school year is up?
Katie.
We don't need to. I mean, I know we've been, well, we took a little bit of break since the school committee reorganization process. We were spending a lot of time together for the last 6 months. So yeah, I defer to you all if there's things we need to pay attention to before the school goes out.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And I know a lot of the work that we've done during these meetings is kind of to have conversations here to present to the full school committee, and I'm not sure that I can't think of anything that needs to be presented either at the June 3rd or future meeting.
Yeah.
I can't,
I mean, if something comes up, we can always call one.
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
I think the next step of that, because I agree with Katie, is to say that if school opens on the 24th and we start to look at our retreat with the calendar of school committee meetings going for next year, that there would need to be a finance meeting as part of the starting off the year as well.
Yeah.
Just to kind of trust that the calendar that the committee's working on starts in August. So we want the finance committee to be up on board and ready to go for mid-August stuff.
Yeah.
So
Can we, for that part, Nathan, can we like sometime over the summer, look at the timing of these meetings
to do when they happen.
or just the day?
Yeah, we can reset the
We could
schedule
Look at like
for sure.
Tuesday morning, or
Sure.
I just need, I'm not totally sure, but
Yeah, I'd rather set that
Mhm.
early so it can just be.
Yeah, I just-
scheduled for the
Yeah.
next year.
Okay, yeah, and we can check in on that
okay.
for sure.
Thanks.
It is always helpful when we think about it,
A set day.
it's a set day is very helpful, and then making sure that if we're meeting every week, which we were during the year,
Yeah,
which is fine. If we ever go to every other week, it would be nice to have the every other week be the opposite week of school committee
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah.
So the preparation happens here in order to present.
Yeah.
Not the same day stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I think,
the reorganization.
oh, yeah, I guess we have a.
I'll make a motion for Nathan to be the chair of finance subcommittee.
I'll second that. All in favor? Okay. And I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Great,
It's
adjourn.
not picking up this setting is also weird, but, so it wasn't picking up everybody's hands, but we both voted for
We did,
Yeah.
we voted
Nathan.
unanimous. All right.
And to adjourn.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Oh, no.